Hi everybody, I'm Susan Mulvihill. I am so excited because today's topic is seed starting. Now whether you are a brand new gardener or someone who has never started their own plants from seed, I am going to take the mystery out of it today. I know it can feel daunting at times, like there's so many rules and everything. I'm going to keep it simple and economical for you. So first I'm going to explain why you would want to start your plants from seed. You're going to save a ton of money. Then I'll go over the basic equipment that you should have. And then I'll take you right through the steps because I need to start some lettuce today that I'm going to get going earlier than usual. And that's because it's going under some special protection. So let's get started. The best reason for starting your own plants from seed is that it is so economical. Let's take a look at this packet of Butter Crunch lettuce seeds as an example. So let me just flip it over. And if you look at this small print here, it says minimum 250 seeds in this packet. And the packet cost me $2.50. That means I have the ability to grow 250 heads of lettuce for a total of $2.50. Now let's say you go to the grocery store and you want to buy a head of lettuce. And actually it's been so long since I've done that, I don't really know what they cost, but let's just say that they cost $2 each. It would cost you $500 to buy 250 heads of lettuce compared to $2.50 for the exact same amount. I think that's a very good argument for starting your own plants from seed. Another great reason for starting your own plants from seed is that you will be able to grow all sorts of varieties of flowers and vegetables. When you go to a garden center or a nursery, they will typically have a fairly limited amount of varieties of the different types of veggies and flowers. And don't get me wrong, because I love garden centers and nurseries and I'm a regular customer, but a lot of times I'm looking for something special. Maybe it is a dwarf tomato variety. Maybe it's a watermelon that will ripen in our short growing season. Maybe it's something that is heat tolerant because we sure have been getting a lot of hot summers. So those are all great reasons for doing your seed shopping at your garden center or online and then starting those plants from seed yourself. And the last reason that it's great to grow your own plants from seed is because you know exactly how they were grown. You know that they weren't around any chemicals, hopefully, and that you gave them the best possible start in life. Well, it would be a showstopper if you didn't have seeds, right? So we'll say that's the number one thing that you'll need for seed starting. And be sure to patronize your local independent garden centers because they always have great selections, and when you buy locally, you don't have to pay for shipping. Let's look at the different types of containers you might use to start your seeds in. And there are so many options, but I want to give you a basic understanding of what matters. So this is a traditional seed starting setup. The bottom is called the flat, and there's no drainage holes in them. And that is a good thing because later when you're watering your seedlings, you certainly don't want the water to go all over the place. The flat insert comes with different size openings, and it does have drainage holes, and that goes inside the flat. Now in this case, this is a deep root insert that I bought years ago, and I use it for large rooted vegetable crops. Now, I'm not talking about things like carrots or parsnips because those get planted directly out in the garden. I'm talking about starting things like beans, corn, peas, winter squash, and summer squash because they have a good size root system. So this has worked great for me. But the inserts come with all different size openings. So here's an example. We used to have a whole flat insert of this size. This is a great size for giving room for roots of different types of seedlings. And so we eventually tore these apart because they usually have perforations between them and separated them out. But I just want you to know it does come in different sizes. Now another type of a setup is this one. This is called the Grow Ease kit, and it is from Gardener's Supply. And it has a little bit different approach. So the bottom does not have any drainage holes, just like I showed you with the flat. And the idea is that you would use the bottom part as a water reservoir. So you fill it with water up to about here, and then it has a little platform inside, and on top of it is what is called a capillary mat. And what it does is it wicks the water up onto the top of this platform. And then here's the insert, which is going to sit on top of the platform. So that means that the seedlings will get watered from the bottom up, and that is fantastic. With any type of a seed starting setup you use, you will want either what's called a dome lid. You can see this one has one. Here's a big one that will go onto the large flat, or you could use a clear plastic bag. And the whole point of it is that after you plant your seeds, you need to increase the amount of humidity around them. And so that's what this or a clear plastic bag will do. Once the majority of the seeds have sprouted, then you remove the bag or the lid. So it's very important that you use something like this to help improve germination or sprouting. Now, there is an awful lot of plastic in the world, and I'm a huge fan of reusing or repurposing plastic containers so that I'm having less of an impact on the environment. So I wanted to show you a couple of examples here. This is a container that's real sturdy that I bought some mushrooms in at the grocery store. Here's something else we bought, I don't know what in, and it is super sturdy. And here is half of a salad mix container, and that can be the lid. We'll just tie it together. So that is a great way to reuse and repurpose the plastic that we all have around us. And the thing I like about using food containers is that you know they're perfectly safe for starting your seeds in. Another thing you're going to need, obviously, is something to start the seeds in. So you're looking for a sterile seed starting or germination mix. They go by both of those names, and it's something that's very easy for the seeds to push their way through. You can also use a plain potting mix as long as it doesn't have a lot of additives to it, like fertilizers and water retaining polymers and all those kind of high-tech things. It's not a good idea to use garden soil because there can be pathogens in there, and I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. But it's really best to use either a seed starting mix, also known as a germination mix, or a very plain sterile potting mix. There is one other piece of equipment that you might consider if you don't want to plant in plastic containers, and that is something called a soil blocker. And what you do is you pre-moisten your seed starting mix, and you get it to just the right consistency where it will hold together pretty well. And you put this into a container that has the mix into it, and you push this down, and what happens is it forms little blocks of potting soil or seed starting mix within the cubes. You lift this up and put it into the container you want to use, and then you push them back out, sorry for the squeak, and lift it off. And I did that last year for the first time. It worked really great for starting things like tomatoes and peppers, and it was great because I didn't have to mess with pots. Now, I told you I was going to say something about disease pathogens, and I don't want to freak you out, but I do want you to be aware of two very important points. First of all, you always want to start out with clean, sterilized equipment. So if you haven't cleaned out your pots from last year, it's a very good idea to clean them with a light bleach solution just to make sure there's no pathogens in them. There is a disease called damping off syndrome or damping off disease, and it is caused by several different types of species of fungi. They can kill seedlings very quickly. Fortunately, quite a few years ago, I learned that there is a naturally occurring chemical in sphagnum moss that inhibits the development of damping off syndrome. The product that I started out with years ago was called finely milled sphagnum moss, and that's essentially what you're looking at here. I finally ran out of some a couple of years ago, so I searched on the web and I found this product called No Damp Off, and I do not have any connection with them. This package has a ton of milled sphagnum moss in it. I bought it for $5.50, and it will take me forever to go through this bag. So it's very economical. It's like a little insurance policy to protect your plants. So what you want to do, and I'll demonstrate this as I'm starting my lettuce seedlings, is that after you have planted your seeds and covered them if they require covering, you sprinkle just the lightest layer of this product on the soil surface, and that will help inhibit those nasty fungi that cause damping off syndrome. You may have heard of seedling heat mats, and I wanted to very quickly address them. So that's what you're looking at here. It is a mat that is wired to heat up to a certain temperature, and it's got a cord, obviously. And to be honest, the only times we have used ours has been for starting things like peppers and eggplants, sometimes tomatoes. But all three of those crops really benefit during germination from having a little bit warmer soil. There are some seedling heat mats that have a very special thermostat attached to them that you can really dial in a specific temperature range. But these work very well. They're not terribly expensive. I want to say maybe they're about $30. We've had this one for eons, and it's holding up just great. But if your seed starting area is relatively warm, you should be fine, and you probably don't need one of those. But if you really want to get into starting things like peppers, eggplants, and tomatoes, then you might consider using this. And the way it works is you put it under the flat, and you will leave it under there plugged in 24/7 until the majority of the seeds have germinated, and then you can unplug it and remove it when you need it for something else. I wanted to talk about fertilizer real quickly. Seeds have enough energy to send a root down and a sprout up, and the sprout will have two very simple leaves which are known as cotyledons. Shortly after that, the seedlings will start developing what are known as true leaves. And they're called that because you'll see a leaf pattern that is what you would expect to see on the mature form of that same type of plant. When they get to that stage where they've got those first true leaves, that's when you can start fertilizing them. I like to use a high nitrogen fertilizer. Nitrogen is the first number on packages of fertilizer, and it promotes leafy green growth, and that's what the seedlings need early on. This is Alaska fish fertilizer. There are similar types of products on the market. I like that it's organic, and it is a liquid emulsion that you add to water. Now, what I like to do when the seedlings are young is I don't want to give them a really strong fertilizer. So what I do is, let's say the label says use a tablespoon of fish fertilizer to a gallon of water. I would use half a tablespoon of the fish fertilizer to a gallon of water. So I'm using the fertilizer itself at half strength. And You don't need to do a lot of fertilizing, maybe like about every 10 days or so when the seedlings are relatively small. And we'll get into that because I plan to do follow-ups to today's video. So don't worry about that, but I just wanted to bring this to your attention. Let's talk about lights. Seedlings need light in order to grow. If you're really going to get into seed starting, it would be worth your while to invest in some type of a grow light setup. Now I have this one here. It's also from Gardener's Supply, and it's called the Stack and Grow system. I started out with the lowest tier that you can see, and I liked it so much I added on a second tier, and then I liked that so much I decided, okay, maybe I do need 3 levels for seed starting. This uses LED lights, and it has worked really well for me. You can adjust the height of the lights very easily, and you can put it on a timer. I typically run it for about 15 hours a day, usually from about 6 o'clock in the morning till about 9 o'clock at night, and then it turns off. That is enough light for the seedlings. There are all different kinds of grow light setups, some that are inexpensive, very simple. There is nothing wrong with that. We have used fluorescent tubes on a different grow light setup for a number of years, and that has worked great. But I like this one because it's quite compact. The thing is that you can start seeds in a sunny windowsill, but there's a couple things to keep in mind. First of all, you have to make sure that they're getting enough moisture because they might dry out more. And the other thing is the little seedlings are going to be leaning because they really need that sunlight. And so you need to turn around the flat of the seedlings on a regular basis so that they will grow up straight. It's a fact that indoor light is nowhere near as strong as actual sunlight. So I just want to let you know that you want to keep an eye on your seedlings if you're growing them in a sunny window, and I have no problem with you doing that at all. I just want to make sure that you're aware that they will be leaning towards the sun, trying to get as much light as possible, and that you will have better results growing nice strong seedlings and healthy seedlings under grow light systems. It's totally up to you and your budget what you'd like to do. I just wanted to show what we have. Well, that was a whole lot of information, wasn't it? Let's plant some seeds now so all of this makes sense. The first thing I did is I got a bucket full of some seed starting mix, and I lightly moistened it. So the goal is to have the amount of moisture you would expect to feel in a wrung out sponge. So not sopping wet and not super dry. And now I'm going to fill my container. Now, even though I'm planting lettuce, I wanted to point out that when you're getting ready to start seeds indoors, always check what the recommended depth the seed should be planted at. This other information about planting space, row space, and so on is just referring to when you are planting them out in the garden. However, you'll notice it says sprouts in 7 to 10 days for these seeds. So that gives you an idea of when to start seeing sprouts in your seed starting trays. I'm using that Grow Ease seed starting kit that I showed you earlier to start my lettuce. And I'm going to grow 4 different varieties, so 1 per row of cells. And what I did is I put some blue painter's tape on the end. I'm going to mark the different varieties. And that way, if a couple of the seeds don't germinate, I'll know which variety it is that I need to reseed. I was watching an interesting video the other day, and I learned that lettuce needs light in order to germinate. And so what the person was saying is to just place the seeds on the soil surface and just press them into the soil. So I want to give that a try because that sure sounds easy. Okay, there's the first row. Since I'm planting the lettuce with this new method where I'm just pressing the seeds into the soil surface, I'm just giving them a little bit of extra water to make sure they're making good contact. Since everybody asked me, I'm going to let you know what this watering system is. So I'm using something called bottle top waterers, and you can order them on the web. They're really inexpensive, and you usually get several in a package. And then you just screw it on top of like a 2-liter pop bottle, and it makes for a slick water. So I recommend that. Now it's time for me to sprinkle a very fine layer of the finely milled sphagnum moss. You can see you don't use much, and that's why I said this bag is going to last me for forever. And it's just a little insurance policy. Definitely worth it. Okay, that's all I have to do. I've already filled up the water reservoir on this, so the next step is to put the lid on top and put it under the light. Here we go. I'm going to turn the light on. There. And then all I have to do to lower the light, because I want it right above the container, is to unscrew and adjust it and then re-screw this little fitting on here. I'll do that for the front and back. Well, that was a lot of information today, wasn't it? But I really wanted to give you a good foundation so that you have great success at starting your own plants from seeds. I promise to give updates along the way. Thanks so much for watching today, everybody. I'll see you next week.